While I'm streaming, I might as well record this video for YouTube. What's up, YouTube? This video is coming out to you while I'm streaming at 11:15 p.m. I haven't recorded a video for YouTube in a while, so why not? And don't worry, I'm gonna come back to YouTube. I'm not gonna pull the Corey Kenshin where I disappear for a year and then come back. But yeah, I just been working on my social medias like Instagram and stuff, and my personal business, of course. So, yeah, let's get into this video. Is love real? Joe Bartolozzi. I like to react to this guy because he's pretty thoughtful. Although he's an atheist, which I highly disagree with, he's also very thoughtful.
Is love real? Can you actually love somebody, or is it just something within your body and animalistic genetics that is driving you to feel a false sense of love when it is actually just either sexual attraction or some sort of emotional thing that you have no control over and is just, apparent in our biology? One of you guys recommended that I do this, and I thought it would be an awesome topic to talk about, so we're going to ramble about it. Now, we're going to be talking about two different types of love. Love in a romantic setting and love in a general setting for, like, your friends and family members and things of those sorts. I think the question for me was generally directed towards love in a romantic sense, but I'm going to answer for both because I think that there needs to be some sort of recognition of the separation and also similarities between the two. Now, in the romantic sense, I would say all relationships start at physical attraction. If you walk up to somebody, you have no idea whether or not you're going to find them attractive or be in love with them at some point outside of literally what they look like. And a lot of people will try and dispute this and say, oh, well, you can love somebody inside and out regardless of what they look like. And I agree on that. But before you even speak to somebody, the first thing that your brain is making an assumption on someone is off of what they look like, what their face looks like, what their body type is, what they dress like, how they present themselves, maybe even certain things like what they smell like. Do they make eye contact with you? Bodily things are what you're going to notice first. A better way to put it is all relationships romantically start off of lust or attraction to that individual in a physical sense, something that is animalistic and you have no value or capability to control over personality-wise. Like, you're not in love with their personality before you find them physically attractive first and foremost. Now, as you begin dating somebody or talking to them more, seeing them more, and becoming more romantically involved with one another, you can grow to genuinely love someone. I do believe that romantic love does exist. I've been dating my girlfriend for 3 years now, and I would say that I truly do love her outside of just an animalistic tendency. Now, what I mean by that is the connection you have with somebody at their core. The longer you're with somebody, the more they become a part of you. Everything that you self-identify with, some fraction of that becomes them. Now, obviously, you don't want your partner to control your personality or your life, but subconsciously, if you've been dating somebody or married somebody and been with them for years on end, more and more of you, up to a point, will become part of them, and vice versa. You will implant or implement part of yourself in them, and you're not even trying to do so. That's just what happens. You spend a very large portion of your day with one another. You talk to each other day-to-day basis, and you begin to enjoy their interests, and they begin to enjoy your interests, and vice versa. You pick up some of their habits, they pick up some of yours. You get to enjoy them at their core. That's what I would say love is, because you also need to recognize that people change, right? And a big part of love in a romantic setting is enjoying who that person is at their core, regardless of how they change over time. Now, that's why a lot of relationships fail, because you can fall in love with someone in a lust sense and also a romantic sense, and over 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years, they become a person that you no longer associate, or vice versa. You become somebody that they don't like, or you just drift apart and you no longer match. That's why a lot of people get divorced, and that's why a lot of people don't work. Also, I believe because people don't actually mend well and they think that it's love, but it's actually lust. We'll get into that in a minute. Love is something that supersedes change. It is a connection that you have with an individual where, regardless of who they are, you still find them attractive. And what's fascinating about that is once that starts, if it's working, it will never stop. Whereas when you end up meeting somebody, say you've known somebody for 5, 6, 7 years, for the first 3 years that you knew them, you might not have found them romantically or physically attractive at all. A lot of people start out as friends and end up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend later, or vice versa, boyfriend, whatever it may be, right? Even in certain movies or shows, you see that happen. And that's not something that's just, a movie trope that they end up putting in and implementing into a movie for no reason. Like in the show Friends, if you've seen the show Friends, a lot of the people in that show start out as friends and end up getting married or dating. And, it sometimes doesn't work and it sometimes does. But you may not find somebody attractive and end up liking them later on. And then once that hits and they're a part of you and you find their core, it stays. And it's really hard to explain. And I feel like I'm putting it in very rough and shitty terms. But if you've ever been in love with someone, you will get it, in the sense that when I look at my girlfriend, Brooke, and we hang out or we're talking on a day-to-day basis, we're not the same people we were when we started dating. But I still find her at her core fascinating. I love her, and I will, in my mind, at least what I think right now, I will always love her regardless of how she changes in the future. Now, some people can change and become horrible human beings, and that's a different thing. But in general relationship settings, minute changes over time won't bother you, because you and that person will change together. Because you are in part them and they are in part you, you as a whole, as a group, will go through life together in a parallel. Rather than clashing with one another, you will kind of glide together through life. That sounds stupid and cliche, and I know the whole video is going to be that because I'm talking about fucking love. But yeah. Now, in a friendship or romantic setting, just love in general, whether it be for a family member, a friend, a partner, you have that connection to where that person becomes a part of you. It is why you feel distraught when you break up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. It's why you feel distraught when somebody that in your family dies. It's why you feel distraught when you're no longer friends with somebody. Even if you drift apart and end up hating each other over time, you still miss that individual that they were. You loved that person for who they were. Maybe not who they are, but you still have some sort of attachment in your own consciousness and personality to them in the past, current, or future tense. When somebody that you love, whether it be a friend, partner, family member, either dies or drifts apart from you, you feel that sense of mourning, even if they're not dead, because they're absent. A part of them is gone in your brain and in your mind, in your being, and you need that time to heal that fraction of you over that is now gone. It'd be like if I just fucking ripped your arm off. That's what it feels like, right? Like you're a gecko and you have to fucking regrow your limbs. Now, I used to watch the show Rick and Morty. And in the show Rick and Morty, Rick, who is, this fucking super genius that has basically transcended reality and conquered the universe, thinks that love is just an animalistic tendency that drives people to fucking reproduce. Putting it bluntly, that's basically what he says. I'm just kind of paraphrasing. But I used to lean into that when I was younger and just go, oh, yeah, no, love is fake. But when you have somebody that you genuinely lose, in a mourning sense, whether it be somebody that, leaves in a relationship, or specifically death, if you have somebody in your family that dies, or even a loved one that dies, whether it be romantically or, friendship.
No, yeah, I think love is way more than just romantic love and lustful love. Lustful love isn't even love, because love isn't necessarily something that's based on the material. Of course, there's attraction, and that can lead to one's connection to another, to the opposite sex. But there is a stronger sense of love beyond just connections with other persons. For example, right? Say, so you're born in Zimbabwe, Africa, and you love your country. You wish for it to do amazing in life and prosperity. Um, so you work for that. You work hard to bring forth prosperity and grace upon your people. That's a love that transcends just romantic love and lustful love, as Joe defines here. And that type of love transcends many things. It transcends suffering, it transcends pain, transcends all things. That love is what fuels the entire world to keep moving forward. Because if we just narrow down love to just connections to your partner, the world would be a very selfish world. Love is greater than that. Love is greater than connections between your partner. Love is connections to all of creation. Love rules the world. In a way, you can say love brings forth order within the world. And that's why love always transcends. Love is a transcendental category. And that's why the Bible says God is love as well.
Anyways, in short, love is real. I think it could be mistaken for lust a lot, and that's something that you need to watch for, and a lot of people fail to see in relationships. Because having sexual attraction to somebody and having physical attraction to somebody can a lot of the time be seen as genuine love, when in reality it's kind of like a drug that's thinning out. Not saying that you'll never be lustful for your partner, more so that you can't rely on a relationship solely off of lust. You need that love, because when those things arise and you have either arguments that you have to work through, problems you have to do, places you have to be for them, you're going to sacrifice time. Time you will never get back. And you want to spend that time accordingly. And somebody that you have lust for, you're not really going to want to spend much time on them comparatively to somebody that you love, because you're going to put out more time for them because you care about them and you genuinely enjoy seeing them happy. And even if you're not receiving something in return, where you would be in lust, you don't care when you love somebody. And I think that's what really matters, is putting yourself first in life, but also putting them in a very close fucking second. And a lot of, in certain situations, putting them first. You have to sacrifice time and sacrifice a lot of effort for something.
Now, we're going to get into a much deeper topic.
Anybody else, and we can have a discussion about this. And I
actually started watching a little bit, or halfway into it, but it's okay.
has a net negative effect on society.
Okay, it's really interesting. So I was thinking about it, and it seems like for some of them, I don't want to, put words in their mouth, but it sounds like they're after it for just like a chunk of the change, right? And so like, what does that mean, like on the healthy side of like the other end, like the consumer, right? And I don't think it will, serve people as a whole in a positivity light, rather than they're just serving themselves. Like, I don't know if that, makes sense, but I guess like my basis is like, it doesn't help serve the world in a positive way. It just serves themselves in a positive way.
Well, are you saying that porn performers do the world a disservice?
I would say so.
Got it.
I'd say it's
I see what he's trying to say. He's trying to say that pornography helps the singular person rather than the whole of humanity as a whole. And I think he's right. It's mostly a selfish action to put upon yourself and watch pornography. It's purely for yourself. It's not for someone else. Because, of course, the lust, the attraction, the dopamine receptors are from you. They're not from anyone else but you. And you do whatever action, whatever sexual action that you please, and that is purely for yourself. So pornography is definitely a selfish action. You don't think of anyone else except your feelings.
Like overall, like if it was a ratio of positive to negative, I would say it's 10% positive. I feel like the rest of it is like the 90% is negative.
I was going to say, yeah, I would agree with what he's saying about it being a net negative on society. We have higher rates of depression and anxiety in younger men, a lot of which can be associated to compulsive sexual behavior. A lot of these men lose meaning in their lives. We create a culture starting in the 1960s where sex is a transactional thing, where there's no biological imperative to have sex with somebody who you are connected to in a relationship or in a spiritual sense. So sex becomes a transaction between two people, and I think just in basic economic terms, if there's more sex available, then sex is less valuable. So.
Got it.
I am a cognitive neuroscientist, and I have written a best-selling book called Mind Over Explicit Matter on porn addiction recovery. I call it the silent tsunami, because basically that brain dysregulation that happens in a person's brain, which is below the surface. That's how a tsunami starts. There's a crack in the ocean floor. Nobody knows it's happening. But then it creates mental and physical health issues, which there's a significant rise in anxiety and depression. There's also what I call porn-induced ADHD, because scientific studies have shown that not only is the structure of the brain impacted, but function also. So people can't focus, their productivity decreases. Physically, it leads to erectile dysfunction, which is destroying people's relationships.
Can you say a little bit more about physical change to the brain?
Yeah, so there's a study that shows that there is basically the reward centers are smaller, where you would think they'd be larger, but it's because of that desensitization in the reward center, and then that's in the midbrain. The reward pathways feed.
I want to say something real quick. You realize everything, because, man. So 309 stopped. This guy was speaking truth right here, because he said starting in the 1960s, people started focusing more on sex, I guess. Let's go back to what he said, actually.
I would say it's 10% positive. I feel like the rest of it is like the 90% is negative.
I was going to say, yeah, I would agree with what he's saying about it being a net negative on society. We have higher rates of depression and anxiety in younger men, a lot of which can be associated to compulsive sexual behavior. A lot of these men lose meaning in their lives. We create a culture starting in the 1960s where sex.
You lose meaning because you focus purely on yourself, nothing else. You focus purely on yourself. Selfishness. Selfishness is the root cause of all bad things in this world. Seriously. Because selfishness is rooted from pride. You uplift your own self because the feelings that you have, you put it above everything else, and you glorify those feelings rather than actually have a purpose and doing something else. You need to have a purpose rather than doing something purely for your own selfish gain or feeding your own ego. It's like the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. You're not going to be satisfied, and it'll only lead you towards your death.
Sex is a transactional thing where there's no biological imperative to have sex with somebody who you are connected to in a relationship or in a spiritual sense. So sex becomes a transaction between two people, and I think just in basic economic terms, if there's more sex available, then sex is less valuable. So.
Yes, also for this reason. Of course, sex has a purpose, procreation, and the connection of two connected people or partners, opposite sex, in an action to bring forth more love, more productivity into the world by creating another human being, of course. There's purpose in sex. Pornography doesn't really play a part in that purpose. It just plays a part in feeding yourself, like I said. And there's many negative factors to feeding this self of yours. Like this lady says here, there's many physical and mental factors, negative factors that go along with watching pornography. What else would what was I gonna say? Yeah, like I was saying, you realize all these negative things in the world is coming from selfishness. You focus on yourself, the fulfilling of your own pleasures, and you're not focusing on anything beyond yourself. That's selfishness, right? And that's what watching pornography is doing. You're just feeding your own self in probably the most negative manner as well.
Got it.
I am a cognitive neuroscientist, and I have written a best-selling book called Mind Over Explicit Matter on porn addiction recovery. I call it the silent tsunami because basically that brain dysregulation that happens in a person's brain, which is below the surface, that's how a tsunami starts. There's a crack in the ocean floor. Nobody knows it's happening. But then it creates mental and physical health issues, which there's a significant rise in anxiety and depression. There's also what I call porn-induced ADHD, because scientific studies have shown that not only is the structure of the brain impacted, but function also. So people can't focus, their productivity decreases. Physically, it leads to erectile dysfunction, which is destroying people's relationships.
Can you say a little bit more about physical change to the brain?
Yeah, so there's a study that shows that there is basically the reward centers are smaller, where you would think they'd be larger, but it's because of that desensitization in the reward center, and then that's in the midbrain. The reward pathways feed forward to the frontal lobe. Those pathways are impacted too, so people can't think.
Shall we bring the disagreeers?
Let's do it.
Please join us.
I mean, I feel like it's not our fault that y'all can't push the computer away. Like, we providing a service and doing a job. We're not forcing anyone to watch porn. That's a decision that you make on your own. We don't force anybody to watch.
Do you think
porn.
it's a net positive or a net negative?
I mean, I think it's a positive thing.
What's positive about it that you believe brings the service to the to
because
other
you
people?
have the option of being able to watch it or not watch it. You have that option yourself to do that. It makes you feel good. Like, it makes you release. It makes you feel all kinds of things, arousement in sexuality. It helps you be more confident about your body. For me, porn has been very positive to me, especially being a plus-size boy in the gay porn industry. I deal with people always coming at me in the industry because of my size. And in gay porn, it's not really acceptable to be a plus-size boy. So for me, porn has helped me be more confident in my body and stuff like that. And I know people who watch my porn who are like me come to me all the time and say, watching your porn has made me more confident.
It taught me sexual experiences. I had, going into 5th grade, they taught you sex. A boy and a girl has sex, but I didn't know what that looked like, So sure, it could be bad. It could teach you crazy things or whatever, But for me personally, it taught me a lot of things. Like, I'm not gonna go ask my mom, how do you give a blowjob? Or like my friends at a young age when I have a boyfriend. Like, that's something that it's honestly a research point in some aspects for some people.
Honestly, I would.
All of the points basically you're gonna hear this side talking about are points that porn is good for them, satisfying to them. It's gonna be a circular point that they're always gonna bring for them, for me, because it's purely selfish. It's not beneficial for anyone else except themselves. Why do you need to know about sexual actions at such a young age? A mix of growing up without principles that your family puts upon you, of course, and a mix of simply living for yourself, living to satisfy your own pleasures.
For me personally, it taught me a lot of things. Like, I'm not gonna go ask my mom, how do you give a blowjob? Or like my friends at a young age when I have a boyfriend. Like, that's something that like it's honestly a research point in some aspects for some people.
Honestly, I would characterize that as a net negative because that, science now shows that porn is how most kids are learning about sex, and it's hypersexualized. And we know there's an increase in violence. And so now we have young people, punching, choking, anal sex is up, and we have young people now learning that this is healthy.
Anal sex is violent.
Well, it can be, but the violent piece of porn isn't just anal sex, but it covers kind of this, again, continuum overarching. But now with kids having their phones in their pocket, they don't have the opportunity to learn from healthier ways. I think that is the unique perspective that I've had because I wasn't addicted to porn, yet I was very close to someone that was. So having an outside view plus having the education to understand it, I work with a lot of people. They don't have the awareness until they do, but usually that's because they have significant mental and physical health issues.
I don't believe that like everyone who watches a porn video from their first time watching it is going to now have a problem. I think that there are plenty of people who can make that distinction.
Most people do if they continue to watch porn. So, I call it the seeds of addiction, but of course seeds have to be watered. If you don't water seeds, they don't grow. But for people who develop a habit, and there's scientific studies that show consuming porn one time a month still leads to compulsive behavior.
So who's not addicted to porn?
People who don't watch it.
That's it. Like you can't healthily take this
so
in
when
at
it comes to brains, it's the same with alcohol. Most people who consume alcohol regularly do have a dependency on it.
But there's no possible have a beer, put it, and then that was...
For some people, but there's tolerance building, escalation over time. And that goes back to your point, Logan, that people don't know until they know. But most people are not aware until basically there's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
I personally don't think most people have an addiction to it. I think that what is being considered an addiction on this side of the spectrum is not considered an addiction on this side. Just
there's
because
definition to addiction.
Yeah, just because we watch something maybe once a month or whatever doesn't necessarily. To me, I'm more addicted to my phone, to food, to everything else besides that. That's the least addictive thing.
Well, there's qualifiers to the definition of addiction, and then I tell people just try to stop watching.
Well, of course she would say that because addicting to her is like, I don't know to be honest, because she lives her life having sex, creating pornography for others. So of course she's gonna have a very biased view of addiction.
But it's about that brain map. If it's green, it's about your state, and so your state changes. So when people work with me, they'll say, I didn't even know I could be calmer. I didn't know I could be more focused. I didn't know I could have less anxiety. I don't feel depressed. My sexual arousal for my partner is through the roof in a way that it never was before. So
no, and I see I think it isn't a one-size-fits-all type of thing. I think that there are plenty of people, it's going to vary person to person. I think that there are a lot of people, because even if we take away pornography, if we look at something like something like the keto diet, there's plenty of people who will be, okay, you can find a lot of evidence backing, okay, you'll lose weight on this, you'll sleep better, this, and that. And then there's other people who are like, it didn't work for me, I had headaches, I had this, and both can be true. So is that not the same thing? Why is there no possible way to have a healthy relationship with pornography, with masturbation?
It goes back to the dopamine dependency of the supernormal stimulus.
But there's so much that gives you dopamine. People get that from work. They get an unhealthy relationship with as far as getting more
power. You can be addicted to work, but the dopamine from work is significantly lower. It's not a supernormal stimulus. It's a normal stimulus. So in real life, probably the highest normal stimulus is skydiving. It's like your system is completely jacked up, you're overstimulated. That is probably in real life the highest level stimulus you could get.
But how can we get these people that are really compulsive and have addictions, how can we get these people help?
My answer would obviously be organized religion, specifically Catholicism. Now, that's obviously just me, but I think it's clear that we've departed from a unifying ethic that brings everybody together. And then there's people on the fringes that basically just think that, well, pleasure is the best thing possible, or power is the best thing possible, and we've lost the thing that puts everybody at the center, that brings everybody together.
Are you saying everyone should be religious?
In utopia, sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's your utopia. Mine is not.
Yeah, no.
Well, I would, to build on that,
nightmare
I
for
would
me.
believe that everyone should have like some sort of core values to not serve other humans, but just to bring positivity to the world. And that's why I stepped forward, because I didn't believe that, being a porn star, and I wanted to be one at one point. Like, I actually got that deep in the game, and I was like, wow, so,
You still can.
Of course, they wouldn't want to live that religious life, because their life is currently the complete opposite from it. Living for themselves. When did living for yourself ever bring any goodness into the world? It never brought any type of goodness into the world except self-pleasure. Some powerful person can just wake up someday and decide, oh, I feel like destroying a village because my pleasures are leading me towards that. When you are led by pleasures, you live a life of disorder and no type of love. Religion is the complete opposite. It brought forth much order into the world, much advancements.
And why don't you tell me 3 core values you have for being a porn star?
Core values, I want to make money, I want to feel good about what I'm doing, and I want to make other people feel good as well. That's just off the top of my head.
Making people feel good in a pleasurable sense of, masturbation?
Yeah, sure. If that's one of the ways, then sure, why not?
I can't necessarily think of a lot of ways that are probably going to be a good argument as far as why it's necessarily a positive thing. But I just don't view it as something that's negative in the right person's hand, I guess. Porn itself as a form of entertainment, I think the fact that it is just something that is out there, that if you choose to watch it, you can, because you have the freedom to, is a positive thing.
I just had a question for you.
Yeah.
You said earlier that you can't necessarily think of any reasons right now as to why porn would be beneficial to society.
Yeah, but I also,
can.
yes, but
Does that concern you at all?
no, because I don't think it needs to be. I don't necessarily think video games, I can't think of a lot of ways that video games are positive other than it just being fun, mindless entertainment.
Right.
I think there's a place in a functioning society for mindless entertainment to just be okay in moderation. And I don't think it's selfish either to want pure entertainment sometimes.
All right, this has been really interesting, and I think we have more topics to get to, so why don't we get to the next topic?
Sounds good.
Masturbation has many health benefits. Agreeers, please step forward. Well, you know what? Since you were hesitant, I want to start with you.
I just want to say something okay, I don't even think about porn or masturbation anymore, but sometimes when you do get that idea, you know what I mean, and you ain't got no person to talk to, all of a sudden you start going crazy, what the f***, ah, shit, I'm horny, you know what I mean, the blue balls be kicking in, you know what I mean, right? But the thing with me is, I refuse to still masturbate, even though it's hurting. So it gets to the point, sometimes I go crazy, shit, I gotta go meet somebody, oh shit, you know what I mean, right? So, but when I let that out, all of a sudden I come back to my normal sense. So I will say it helps that I ain't got to deal with the pain of pelvic cramps and blue balls. I'll give you that much. And if I remember right, ain't you supposed to nut to avoid prostate cancer or something? Ain't you supposed to?
I'm
not a
We're
doctor.
not the scientists.
We have many ways to get certain things, receive certain things, but that doesn't mean that it's good to do it. So this is not a good point. There's a purpose and a use for everything. There's a false purpose for everything as well.
Sexy.
But as porn stars, we want y'all to bust y'all nuts and stuff because that's how we get paid.
Fascinating. Let's bring in the
I mean, that's not
I learned so much. I learned so much from
Tell me
you.
you're not a porn star.
Man, highlight of my day. All right, disagreeers. Thoughts?
What do you believe that you manifest when you masturbate? What do you think? Do you think nothing, or
I think
it's
my life.
subconscious?
You can manifest money, you can manifest experiences. Just that the creative energy within your sacral chakra, and if you don't know anything about spirituality, you're probably going to look at me like I'm crazy, and it's completely separate, not completely separate from science. Like there are parts of manifestation that have to do with like scientific basis.
Yeah, well, I love the idea of chakras, and chakras are actually energy centers in your body that are aligned with where there's more nerve energy. But when you overstimulate a chakra, then they're no longer balanced, and that is an issue with overstimulating the sacral chakra, because then it takes away from all the others.
Okay.
And you know, going back to the idea of hypersexuality, then it accidentally, inadvertently puts you in a hypersexual place where, you know, then it feels empowering to you, but it might not necessarily be balanced.
Okay, but from my perspective, I'm not like doing it like it's like when I feel like that like energy starting to circulate in my body, like I'm gonna do something with it. I'm not like every day being like, I need to like hypersexualize myself. I need to do this. Like, I just feel like I have a very balanced relationship with my job and then like my own personal masturbation. So it's like hasn't like unbalanced my life. Like,
Do you feel like your job has taken away from sexuality with another person?
No, I've dated not plenty of men, like while I've been a porn star, but the times that I have, like I've really enjoyed the experiences with them.
Actually, I found that through shooting porn, it's enhanced my personal relationship with a significant other, but I come home to my person, you know, and so that's my person. So when you have sex with them, it's emotional, it's sensual, you love them. But when you're having sex on set, it's, you know, it's a job, you're acting, you're, you know, whatever. So personally for me, it's made the two separate, but I do know men who have a hard time in their sex life who do shoot porn, but because they're using their dick so much.
And I love that distinction, because what you're talking about is the artificiality of, you know, your job at performance.
Yeah.
And then you being able to experience that sensual experience with a partner. From my perspective, it's about the consumer that might not have that distinction, because when the dopamine's all linked to consuming pornography, then they're not able to, you know, have that kind of that dichotomy that you're able to have.
I do think that there is a link between the morality and the health. So, I mean, I just don't, I think it's too simplistic to say that masturbation or masturbation to pornography specifically, sure, you get oxytocin, you get dopamine, you get serotonin. Okay, there's a ton of stuff that gives you those three chemicals, perhaps in higher doses, that are terrible for you. Things that anyone with sense would say, we probably shouldn't be doing that. So I think that just, you know, having one facet of, all right, this is healthy because we get feel-good chemicals.
But I'm curious, as far, because the prompt being, what, it was just objectively, masturbation is healthy, that was the prompt? So what, not, like taking porn out of it, what makes masturbation unhealthy in your opinion?
Yeah, Logan, I love what you said, actually, is that, you know, masturbation in and of itself, you know, I don't know that it has health benefits, and that prostate cancer thing is the world's oldest excuse for people who have compulsive masturbation.
But is it true?
It don't.
Like, no, actually, I've looked into the research, and people who compulsively masturbate have less healthy prostates as they age. So the big distinction is compulsive or not compulsive. But when pornography is in the mix, masturbation.
Thank God I've never done such disgusting, wicked act. Oof.
Becomes compulsive because it's linked to all that dopamine again.
Porn is inherently anti-feminist. Agreeers, please step forward.
Well, so, I mean, I'm assuming that we're using the definition that feminism is for equal rights for men and women. I think that it sort of has to be anti-feminist in a way, because if we're talking about feminism in the context of women as fully fleshed human beings that have inherent value, I think it does the exact opposite of that. I think that it diminishes, I mean, more specifically women, but I think everyone who's taking part in the pornography is diminished to nothing more than a sexual object, than essentially a warm body to masturbate with. Wow, the great you know, success of feminism is that now I can sell my body to the highest bidder online.
Let's bring everybody else in. We can have a discussion about this. And I look forward to hearing what y'all think of as feminist in this context.
I would love to start.
Oh, go for it. You don't have to wait to be called on.
So as a woman, speaking about feminism, we're bringing up the definition of feminism and saying it was having equal rights. If anything, women have more rights than men in the porn industry, especially on like large sets. I get a person to follow me around all day, make sure I'm comfortable. I also, you know, everything's always about the woman. I get paid twice as much as the man on the set. Yeah, so that's my personal opinion on it. I think if anything, it lifts women up and gives them a platform to have confidence. And
Yeah, women dominate that whole entire industry. They make millions, more than the guys do. But the gay performers, they make money too. So, but women dominate the whole entire porn industry and make a killing.
You're assuming that me doing porn is only like having society view me as a sexual object, when in reality, I have a whole life outside of porn. Like, yes, it's a big part of my life, but I also, like, I make YouTube videos. I paint, I read, I do all of these different things. I go to the beach. I'm a whole person, but just like the general concept of like just seeing women as sexual objects just because they're on camera having sex, I think that's like a big issue.
You obviously are a full, complete person outside of what you do in front of the camera for pornography. I obviously would agree with that across the board. So you're just a means to an end for these men who are desperate at home.
Exactly. She's a means to an end, which means that people are looking at her purely to fulfill their own sexual passions. So, she's placing herself in that position and placing herself in a position of being objectified by men or by women if you're a lesbian. So it is inherently anti-feminist.
And want to get off. And they think that you're not a real full human being. They just think that you're a body that's doing something attractive. And
not with OnlyFans these
You're
days.
assuming that everyone's having the same experience when they're masturbating to porn. So for me, like, not only with like the Pornhub and all the studios that I've shot for, all these men that are coming to me, I feel like I do pretty well with attracting people that are just so loving. They make me feel so seen and celebrated as a person. I just had my 3-year porniversary yesterday. So I made a post about that, obviously, and all these comments of like, I love you, like I've loved getting to know you. And it's just been such an eye-opening experience seeing like all these men who you might have that assumption that they just masturbate to porn because they're just trying to like come. But a lot of men I've come in contact with, they're like widowed, they don't have a wife anymore.
This is a huge
like
one.
it's just a lot of different scenarios. So yeah, I just don't like making that big assumption about men.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, I think, from the science, because my perspective is informed by not only neuroscience, but I work with thousands of men who have recovered or are in the process of recovering from porn, is that that intimacy that they feel towards you isn't true intimacy. So, like when a widower reaches out to you and now is building a false intimacy or distorted intimacy, then, you know, like Asher was saying, then he's not going back into the world to meet a real human being that he could make the connection with. And what I think about, like in terms of, you know, the porn industry and feminism, it's more like the authenticity and healthy purpose, and, you know, really going out there and doing the thing that, you know, is in your heart that you want to add to the world.
Is it possible, just a follow-up question, is it possible for there to be a bridge where it is okay? Where, like, say with the widower example, where is it always bad?
I think so, based on the science too, because science shows that basically then those neural pathways are being fired up towards the high level of dopamine from pornography, which makes it almost impossible for most people, and this is the compulsive addictive nature, for those pleasure pathways to be linked to real world experiences. That's what all the neuroscience shows, is that these pathways in the brain are just being traversed back towards porn. Very difficult to, you know, then build pleasure in real life.
She get into the science of it all.
I know.
But going back to like the anti-feminist thing, like because you are right in the fact that like obviously there are plenty guys online are very mean to a lot of the girls in the industry, but I don't think that how people perceive you doing a thing makes that thing anti-feminist, because like they said, obviously a lot of guys like really support them and like feel like they know them on a personal level, but then yeah, there's people who like, and especially if a lot of these girls, if they go and do something after porn, there's plenty of people who are just gonna be like, oh, she's always just gonna be a porn star. So like, but I don't think that makes it inherently anti-feminist. I think that's more of just an issue on these guys and just how they're viewing women.
No, I definitely believe that it can empower women.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, like you have fans that appreciate you and what you do. But that's like a whole different side. What he was mentioning is that there's men that do view women as an object as a result of watching porn. So it's just like, how do we direct like which way to go? Because like for me, I viewed women as an object for a little bit of my life because that's what my idea was from watching porn, and that's pretty much all I knew. I didn't have like a natural relationship. It was all artificial. So I guess what I'm asking is how can we, empower women in a different way, and and link it back to like men appreciating women. Like,
well, what if women don't mind being appreciated for their sexual side? That's something I don't mind. Well, for those men that come in and view me as an object, I view them as a paycheck.
I see.
So
Yeah.
That's a bar.
I don't mind, and then the people who come in and do value me, I also value them too, and I also ask them about how their life is going on, and to be honest, to bring up something, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a chance to bring it up. I have a lot of like functioning autistic people and stuff like that on my page who are just way too scared to get out there in public. They're hardly functioning on their own, and this is something that they can finally get their first like sexual experience with a woman. And I talk to them. It's a beneficial relationship, and I guess it just depends on how you perceive that, if it's negative or positive. For me, I perceive it as a positive thing for them.
My work has always surrounded people on the autistic spectrum too. If they're, basically connecting themselves to you neurobiologically with dopamine, then it would be even more difficult for them to create those real-world connections.
What is the right way to go about that then?
It's about what you feel is right or not, and we don't feel that way.
Well, it's not opinions that I'm talking about. These are scientific facts that
you're saying
are
what is
documented.
negative? You're saying it's negative for an autistic man to have a relationship with a woman online. We don't see it that way.
What I want for people is they can connect with real human beings and have a back and forth of intimacy in the real world.
Yeah, I would love that for them.
Yeah, no,
I
I
love
totally
that.
agree with that, but I'm just curious as far as like with that, at what point does it fall on the responsibility of the sex worker itself? There are plenty of people who don't feel like they can make connections in real life and they turn to that. And I agree, like, I would always advise anyone to go out and make real connections. But if they are choosing not to, is that the responsibility
it's a
of
choice.
us?
Well, this is what I know from the people that I work with, is that, they've gone that route for a very long time, and it's led them to depression, and it's led them to extreme anxiety, because they are trying to fill a gaping hole in an artificial way. They eventually feel empty, and they don't want to have that artificial experience anymore. They want it in real life.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think part of the question was, is the onus on the sex worker? Is there blame to be had on the part of the sex worker?
Oh, no, not at all. But I don't know that, enjoying taking a person away from real world connection, like you're proposing that it's a good thing that you're there for those people. Where I would contend if you weren't doing that, then they would have to, like Asher said, they'd have to get back into their life. And even though it's difficult, they would, they want it. They really want that connection. So they would start doing that instead of watching porn.
Man.
I always encourage my fans to live their lives and go out there. And a lot of men come to me with confidence issues. They're like, I just had someone last week saying, like, give me your top 3 tips on confidence. And whatever came to me, I typed it out, and I was like, you do with that as you wish. And I know it's not my responsibility to like be their therapist, because I'm not. Yeah, there's a lot
that's
of
where the dopamine
loneliness.
dependency comes in, because they are linked to you. Like, when partners have sex with each other, neurobiologically, they become linked through dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. So that's happening in an artificial way. So then they come to you for advice, where if they weren't consuming porn, they would go to their friends or their parents or their siblings or someone, you know, at Starbucks that they connected with.
When the addiction is like so detrimental to your life that it's no longer serving you or giving you what you want, then to me, then that's a problem. So like, for example, if you want a partner, right, and you keep going to the porn, and as soon as you rub it out and get that post-nut clarity, you're like, man, girl.
See, they're making so many excuses so they can still watch porn and fulfill their pleasures. There is no circumstance that should allow you to watch porn. You should not watch it at all, under any circumstance. That's what they don't understand. They keep making excuses, but it's not gonna lead it to be in a better place. It's not gonna lead you to be in a better place mentally or physically. It's just gonna lead you towards a cliff. A cliff of disaster. Like, come on, man. What can't you understand from this lady and the other people here? Come on.
You know what I mean, right? Like if you get to that point, that's a problem. You know what I mean, right? Because that's not what you want. But at the same time, if it's just like, you know what, I just want to feel good for a little bit. And afterwards, you're like, man, they still human beings. Like, I'm having a great day. I don't see a problem
Yeah,
with
but
that.
that's instant gratification. I actually liken pornography addiction to an eating disorder more than gambling. And it's like, you know, if you have an eating disorder to chocolate cake with blue dye and red dye on the frosting, you know, with all those jimmies in there that are scientifically proven to be terrible for you because of the chemicals, like the baker's not at fault. The baker loves baking, so I understand that, but the consumer has to go, do I want to eat this cake with the dyes?
And I want to respond to that too, because I have a nasty little sweet tooth addiction, right? Like I used to love cake,
It's dopamine.
Danishes, all that stuff. But I realized I felt like shit when I was eating all that. So what I do to satisfy my shit, I started just eating fruit. And the fruit was good. So instead of me just getting the nuts from like porn or whatnot, which, you know, if that's what you want, I just want a real woman.
Let's move on to the next topic, shall we?
Let's do it.
Post-nut clarity I'm going to be borrowing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. See, they just keep making excuses to fulfill their own pleasures. It's just rooted around yourself. It's rooted around yourself, nothing else. They do not care about anything else but themselves.
And
Rub it out. Oh shit, what am I doing?
I've suffered from porn addiction. Will the agreeers please step forward?
My porn addiction started when I was around like my teen years, my younger teen years, 13 years old. It started from just playing Geometry Dash or just a little game on my iPad. There was an ad that popped up, and it was an ad to like an adult website, and leading into my young or older teens and 20s, that's where I started suffering from addiction. Just doing it every day, stuck in this loop of not understanding why I'm not, you know, completing the things that I need to complete and not like excelling the way that I saw myself that I needed to excel. And so started having bad relationships with my friends, my family, gone to drugs, gone into excessive alcohol consumption. And so I recognized a pattern, and I was like, I need to get out of this loop. And so I think that thing for me was to stop watching pornography. And ever since that day, man, it's made a huge change in my life. So,
Do you consider yourself in recovery today, or how would you describe where you are now?
Definitely. So I'm over a year away from fapping as a whole, and now I'm on the journey of helping other men discover, you know, what the reason is for them watching porn or fapping in the first place, and, you know, maybe showing them an alternative way to release their energy.
I was also exposed to it pretty young, probably 12, 13. And since then, it was pretty much the primary source of sexual education that I had. I assumed that porn was the way that sex happened in real life. And, you know, it thankfully never got to the point where I was, you know, outwardly, you know, abusive or anything to anybody else, but certainly changed my life for the worse. And, you know, ever since I decided to stop doing it, pretty much everything's just been uphill.
So how would you describe where you are today?
Well, I did have somewhat of a reversion back to my religion, to Catholicism. So right now I'd say I'm, again, probably on the road to recovery. been quite a while since I've had to, fall back into it, but feeling and looking good right now. So.
Cool. NoFap leads to more loyalty in relationships. Agreeers, please step forward. I'm hearing a lot of chuckles. This is fun.
I feel like the loyalty, mainly it remained in like my relationships with other people, not just my friends, but just like my partners that I had previously. I definitely felt like it's like kind of like cheating, right? You get with a person, or at least I did, to gain a connection, pleasure and knowledge, wisdom, whatnot, right? But I feel like once you find it elsewhere or know that you can get it from yourself, would you even need the other person? And so I guess that would disrupt the loyalty in the sense of like, you don't really need anyone else. You don't need that connection. So why do you have to be loyal to someone else?
I feel like pornography would lead to less loyal relationships because you're more focused on the physical aspect of a human being rather than a emotional connection or personal connection with them. Of course, when you have a girlfriend, you have the girlfriend and you have a personal connection with them. It can be a personal connection that is filled with physical love, emotional love, romantic love, etc. But when you go outside and you see other girls, you're gonna look at those girls, and in a way that's being less loyal to your girlfriend, because you're looking at other girls and you're making it seem like your girlfriend isn't enough. So that's less of a loyal relationship. I feel like that's a practical situation.
The opinion, and I'm assuming he would be too, is that any amount of pornography is by definition a breach in loyalty of a committed romantic relationship between two people, because essentially what you're doing is you are replacing the person that you are with for good reasons and replacing them with essentially just a distorted image of a sexual object in order to satisfy yourself instead of fully loving them.
Got it.
There's a reason I believe that love is associated with loyalty, or loyalty is associated with love, not lust. And I feel like a lot of the porn industry is lust-based more than love. So, like I said, therefore, it would be more loyalty and love together.
Got it.
So
Let's bring the disagreeers in, because I feel some rumbling of disagreement, and I would really like to.
I could hear it. I could hear it.
And I encourage you guys to feel free to interrogate each other's positions, because we're here to learn. We're here to expand our own thoughts. So
I'm both, to be honest.
Oh, fascinating. Tell us more.
Can I be?
Wow. Yeah.
I think it could help a relationship for sure. Maybe, it would help to focus on that one person. But I also think that it can also help a relationship in the opposite way of things, where it could, maybe I'm busy and I can't provide that to my partner and I don't want them to look elsewhere.
Yep.
So feel free to use online, if that.
With you in that there's a measure called emotional intelligence. So emotionally intelligent or emotionally mature people want loyalty in a partner. And love comes in 3 phases, going back to what you were saying. There's lust, romantic love, and bonded love. And I've been married for 23 years. So 23 years later in marriage, you have bonded love because, the crap's hit the fan lots of times. You don't stay together just for a great sex life, You stay together because you've weathered the storm together. So, emotionally intelligent people want that loyalty in a partner. It's kind of like, 2 alcoholics. 2 alcoholics can have a blast drinking, but that doesn't make them 2 healthy people.
Interesting. I hear some
rumblings.
So me being with a partner and us watching porn together, that, you compare that to us being 2 alcoholics?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Just because we want to spice it up a little, we just want to watch other people have sex.
It's still objectification. If you're watching other people have sex, you are no longer having a sexual experience in and of itself. It takes you out of the present and it puts you into fantasy. Fantasy is hypersexualized, which means in your experience with your partner, you're looking for level 15 dopamine instead of the happiness trifecta. And so a lot of people are doing that, and they're trying to get, maximum pleasure out of a sexual experience with their partner, but that means you don't get to enjoy that rounded out experience.
This is one I can get behind.
I would say yes. Of course, I love sex in the sense that it is the natural procreative action that brings together two people in a love so intense that it actually forms another human being if everything goes to plan.
That's why I stepped forward.
Yeah, I was about to say, what brought you in? Yeah.
Yeah, just like, that's the true intimacy, that's the true love. Like, that's what I believe sex was designed for, was to, have partners show love to each other and bring another human being into this world.
Other thoughts? You love sex.
I love sex.
Yeah.
Sex is
That's
awesome.
it.
This sex is awesome. Man.
Yep.
Sex rocks. Now, obviously I'm in this industry, but I've had a girlfriend for 4 years as well. She's also in the industry, so I've had plenty of meaningless sex, and I've had plenty of sex, and I will choose sex with my partner over anything, always.
Like,
Don't get me wrong, like, I enjoy sex, right? But when I hear, like, I love sex, it's not so much the sex I love, it's more so the connection. So, like, even when, like, porn got ruined for me, it's like when I realized how fake it was or how professional it is, it's like, damn, I used to think it was real.
Yeah.
So I was looking for women like that, you know what I mean, right? But it's just like, girls ain't like this for real, for real. I broke up with my ex 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And so when she finally moved out the house, like, I just wanted to feel something. So I just went on this little like whole phase. I remember in December, there was this one girl, well, we was having sex. Like, I remember like just mid-stroke, I was like, damn, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I just felt bad, and there was no real connection. And then after that, like, I stopped my little whole phase and was like looking for the real thing.
Taking into consideration the whole conversation we've had today, let's see if we can find a middle ground, something everybody can agree on. Feel free to pitch something.
I think everyone needs therapy.
I personally think maybe like you have to find whether or not something is abusive or not for yourself, if that makes sense. Like, if you're compulsive, finding that issues, I guess, finding out what you're missing in yourself that's making you so dependent on something else is the biggest thing.
It's not as easy as to just make it like this black and white thing. It's just, okay, one side bad, one side good, one side healthy, one side unhealthy. I think it really is a case-by-case basis, and if there is any sense of like reliance or preferment over online things versus regular connections, obviously that's a bad thing. But I don't think it's as simple to just be like, okay, it's bad because some people have a problem with it.
I believe the middle ground is that it's on the consumer and not the the person that's putting it out. So it's really up to us to really learn, like, is it for us? Like, is that what the ideal lifestyle that I want to have? Like, does that fit in it?
I don't know if I agree with that one, to be
Okay.
honest, because, like I said, it's kids, and you all said you found porn when you were young, and so, brains aren't developed then, so
That's
you're
very true.
asking a 10-year-old to be able to decide what they can consume or not, and
I see.
Is a 10-year-old?
Yeah, and I hear that too.
But I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think kids should watch porn at all.
No.
Yeah.
But that is generally who finds porn. And we know that young people are the #1 consumers of porn.
I meant like people over the age of 18. Like, that's what I meant to say, not like children, because there's definitely a big issue there. I guess we can also agree on that as well. Is like, it's too accessible to people on screens, and that it even gets out to children. I think that we need to solve a problem towards that.
100%.
Totally.
100%.
I love that. That's great.
So one of the things we all agree on is that kids shouldn't be watching porn.
Yeah,
Yes.
be 18 and above.
Yeah,
please.
and that's something like porn people get blamed for a lot. They're like, oh, the kids. It's like, dude, like, kids don't have credit
Watch
cards.
your,
like
watch
the
your
children.
kids.
We don't want them
The
watching.
children. What about the children?
Yeah, it serves no benefit to us at all.
It's on
Like,
the parents.
Yeah, on this side, anything else y'all want to throw out there that maybe everybody can agree on?
For me, my middle ground is do whatever works for you. That's it.
I like it.
Do whatever works for you.
I was just going to list off some things that I think we all agree on,
okay.
which is
Go for it.
porn addiction is bad.
Yep.
Yes.
Replacing your partner with pornography is bad. Sex is a beautiful thing. We can all, I think, agree on that. I think, at least for me, those are the 3 things that resonate the most.
Any disagreement?
No.
Sounds like we found a middle ground. Congratulations, you guys. Yeah. We can fist bump. Fist bump. We can.
I know.
Yes.
I'm not as sweaty as I thought.
Alright, well, that's that for that video. I'm gonna go edit this video right now. And I'm getting spam called by somebody. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but let me